Good morning. I'm Senior Master Sergeant Deanna Martinez, Superintendent of the 451st Intelligence Squadron. Today I'm going to talk to you about how we are going to improve the use of PIFs in order to get appropriately marked EPRs and decorations. Now, why does this matter to you? Well, because we are wasting a lot of manpower reviewing decorations that never should have been generated, writing decorations that never should have been generated, sending EPRs back multiple times. And it's worth the time and effort to improve the process in order to give that time back to our airmen. What I'm going to propose is that we switch to digital PIFs. I used the Air Force 8-step problem-solving model to come to this conclusion. So today I'm going to walk you through what I went through. I'm going to talk about how I clarified and validated the problem, broke down the problem and identified performance gaps, set improvement targets, determined the root cause, developed countermeasures, and then I'm going to wrap it up with how we're going to see those countermeasures through, confirm the results, and standardize the process. So when I was clarifying and validating the problem, I really had to consider, is this a problem that's going to meet the needs of our organization? Is it in line with our strategic alignment and deployment? Our number one priority is to take care of our airmen, civilians, contractors, and their families. If we get this right, then we can take care of our airmen professionally, thus allowing our airmen to take care of our mission. I started by using the SWOT process on digital PIFs. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I said, really, what are the strengths of a digital PIF? It allows for quicker search capability. We can control F it. It allows for ease of access. And our career Fort Gordon airmen that stay here forever, they don't normally PCS, but they do PCA. And this process would help their transition from one unit to another if we could just click a button and PCA them over. Some weaknesses, the biggest one be the different networks. We work on one network and the airmen work in the building work on a different network. So we need to consider our platform pretty carefully. Our server space is a consideration. And finally, if there are any AFI limitations. Now, I looked at AFI 362406, the Officer and Enlisted Evaluation System, and I don't see any limitations within that one. But I'd like to get our experts after that problem doing the down and dirty research. Next, I thought about some opportunities. So this is the opportunity for potential for better, more consistent use. And next opportunity would be for automation. Some of these things, a supervisor could just drop in the PIF without having to step in between the middleman. Next, I thought about our threats. PAI not being safeguarded, manipulation of data, and duplication of effort. Will we really get rid of the hard copy, or will there be a requirement to maintain some of those papers? I believe that if we move to digital PIFs based on my SWOT method, we can get more supervisors involved, and this could really help our process. Next, I broke down the problem and identified the performance gaps. So I really had to consider, do we have enough data? Is this truly a problem based on data I had? I did not believe so. So I created some key performance indicators, 3 of them. The first one is the number of supervisors that actually look at PIFs. Second one is the number of EPRs that are generated with ratings not appropriate according to documentation in the PIF. And the third one is the number of decorations that are generated when not appropriate according to documentation found in the PIF. When I looked at the number of supervisors looking at PIFs, there's roughly 240 PIFs in our squadron. Less than 30 of those PIFs were actually reviewed in the last 12 months in that EPR cycle, meaning all of them should have been. This means we have a serious problem. So what is our ideal state? What is our improvement targets? Where do we want to be? We want to be 100% of the PIFs reviewed prior to the EPRs and decorations being drafted. This is where we're going to save our time. So I drew out an ideal state map where I listed out the process and I put the places that we can inject that supervisor review, and then I also added an additional review by flight leadership. The next thing that I did is I thought of the different root causes. So some of those root causes could be the location, the method in which we're doing this, and the people. So in order to do this, I use a fishbone diagram. I had never heard of a fishbone diagram prior to going to senior SNCOA, but Dr. Eugene F.M. O'Laughlin from the National College of Ireland did a video and I watched it and learned how to do a fishbone diagram. So what I did is I broke down each of the potential root causes even further. So the first one is the people. So maybe supervisors aren't trained to know that they're supposed to use a PIF. Maybe they're not doing it because there's no accountability in place. Next, I looked at the location. It's in a file cabinet located in the CSS. That is not co-located with where our airmen work. Additionally, we do lock up the CSS and there's no access to that building. With the majority of our workforce, E6 and below, working shift work, maybe they just can't get to it. Next, I looked at the method. This is paper method. To most folks, this is very archaic and can seem kind of daunting, having to search through paper after paper after paper to get to what they were actually looking for. So I developed some countermeasures. I believe that if we establish some training and expectations, we can ensure all supervisors are taught about PIFs. Next, we could look at moving PIFs to where members in the SCIF can access them. And then we could look at digitizing PIFs. Now, I believe the best bang for our buck is to digitize PIFs. This will get after the location and it will get after the method. I also believe it gets into that supervisor realm as well. So I developed a SMART goal for us. I believe that we should be able to get 100% of PIFs moved to a digital form and every supervisor trained within 180 days. We're going to do this by breaking it down into 5 tasks. The first task is research must be conducted to determine if there are limitations within the AFI. We're going to put our personnelist and our records management team on this task. These are our internal experts. Task 2 is server space. So we're going to reach out to our cyber support office or our CSO office, which is external to our unit, but is co-located in our locally and in our group. Number 3 is we're going to set up a file structure and permissions, and 4 is also going to be moving all the current documentation into this file structure and permissions. All of that is going to be a CSS responsibility, which also falls internally. Next, we're going to develop an SOP, which is going to be drafted by the CSS and the shirt, and then it's going to be reviewed, concurred, and approved by myself and you. We do have some stakeholders that we need to get buy-in from. That's our 3F population, our first sergeants, and the supervisors. In order to get that buy-in, that 3F population and the first sergeants are going to be empowered to own the process. We're allowing them to develop the SOP and to put the things in place that they want. For our supervisors, we're going to communicate early and often. We're going to get that out to them to continually tell them how this is a benefit to them. The barriers fall in our network limitations. As we talked about, we have to consider our platform carefully. Our risk is the protection of the PAI. We're going to ask our CSO team to put some protective measures in place to limit that access. Our parent organization is going to be impacted because we are leveraging the manpower from the CSO office. So how are we going to see these through? In order to do that, it's going to best be implemented as an improvement project. That means we need to communicate the change and develop those SOPs we were talking about. Additionally, the training required will be that we need to teach people how to use this new process, this new digital platform. The CSS will create the training to help with the transition. How do we confirm the results and standardize the process? We confirm the results by giving it a full 12-month OPR cycle, and then we use those KPIs again to see if we've met our goal of 100% PIF review. After we confirm those results, we need to relook at the process and get any lessons learned and communicate those out. There are no limitations. If there are no limitations in the AFI, the SOP will act as the policy. Finally, there was one other root cause, which is that accountability piece. By injecting the leadership in the process, we're going to get that accountability taken care of. In conclusion, today we talked about the problem, which is supervisors not using PIFs. We broke it down into those KPIs. We set improvement target, which is that 100% review. We determined the root cause, which we gave 3 of. We developed the countermeasures to those root causes, and I talked about how we're going to see those countermeasures through, confirm the results, and standardize the process. Pending any questions, that's all I have.